think Big Meech, like, told on somebody to get out, snitched, did anything extra?
No. Let me tell you why. Big Meech paperwork is public records. There is no proof that Big Meech said, hey, bust him, bust him, bust him. Big Meech, bro, I ain't gonna lie. That man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get EMF, ENT on the left side of their neck, man.
In there with a 27-year sentence based on Demetrius Flannery, as you all know as Big Meech, and Tammy Cowens, known in the paperwork as CS1.
Right.
Confidential source 1. So what Big Meech did was call a third-party cooperation.
Is a government informant. So they tell me, he says, you know what this is about? And I said, no. He said, well, you threatened a government informant, and that's a federal.
Whew, y'all, it's getting messy out here because Terrence Gangster Williams just came out swinging to shut down 50 Cent's wild claims that Big Meech was out here snitching behind bars. Gangster is painting a whole different picture, one where Meech wasn't just another inmate, he was running the joint like a king. Every dude inside, they were bowing to Meech out of pure respect. And now, the whole game is flipped because folks are starting to question if 50 was just throwing salty shade after Meech linked up with Rick Ross instead of kissing 50's ring. I mean, was Meech really a Fed informant? Or is 50 just mad he got curved? Y'all better buckle up because we're about to dive deep into everything Gangster spilled about Big Meech's time behind bars.
So, you know, it's selective politics and it's selective who they gonna call a rat or who they not gonna call a rat in this industry. So we've been seeing that since I've been home.
And oh boom, an old interview from New Orleans street legend Terrence Gangster Williams just resurfaced and he didn't hold nothing back. According to Gangster, Big Meech was straight up calling shots in prison, like real boss moves. He said Meech could stroll onto any prison yard, no sweat, and immediately take over without even flexing hard. People wanted to follow him. His influence? Next level. The man didn't even have to raise his voice. That's how you know it's real.
Big Meech, bro, I ain't gonna lie. That man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get EMF, ENT on the left side of their neck, man. It was tattooed, and he made it clear. He said, listen, I'm not giving nobody no connect. I'm not hooking nobody up with nothing. I'm not doing nothing when y'all go home. So, in other words, you know, people try to get with him just for, you know, the games. You know, for me, let it be known, look, I ain't got nothing, nobody. I'm in jail doing my bid, that's what it is, you know what I'm saying? So, man, bro, I literally remember 25 guys at the lunch will go to that rec yard with Big Meech. They're gonna take over the weight pile, they're gonna work out, they're gonna hit the waves, do their little workout, and then after that, Big Meech whoever got the wine, he gonna bottle the wine up, whoever cooking food, he gonna bottle the food up, and he gonna sit in the cell or hang out and just talk war stories, just talk about on the streets, man. He was a very good, humble dude, man. Very humble dude.
And get this, Meech actually had a golden ticket out of prison life, a real shot at breaking out and going back to those million-dollar days before the feds locked him down. But he chose to stay and serve his time. That's loyalty most people can't even dream of. But hold up, before we even touch on that escape talk, let's circle back to them messy snitching rumors. Y'all already know 50 Cent's been loud in the streets, dragging Meech's name through the mud, claiming he turned Fed, and pushing that story through his old associate, Tammy Cowens. But when Gangster was pressed about it, he straight up said he ain't buying that nonsense. Not one bit. Gangster even low-key called out the whole industry, especially people like 50, for picking and choosing who they want to label a snitch, depending on if it fits their narrative.
Do you think Big Meech, like, told on somebody to get out, snitched, did anything extra?
No. Let me tell you why. Big Meech paperwork is public records. There is no proof that Big Meech said, hey, bust him, bust him, bust him. Now, the situation with the lady Tammy, the female that he cool with or whatever, mess with whatever, I was having an argument with somebody about this last night. Now, if we go by prison rules and standards, Big Meech didn't sit down with the agents and say, hey, my bro gonna go ahead and settle a boy up for me, so make sure y'all give me the credit. So we couldn't make a move on him because his name not in the paperwork for saying Arthur.
Now, to really understand where all this mess came from, we gotta rewind the tape all the way back to the rise and brutal fall of BMF, because that's what really led to Big Meech catching that brutal 30-year sentence. What's wild is Meech could have dipped out, left the country, and lived easy, but instead he stood tall. He took that time like a man. No running, no crying, no deals. And that move, it earned him the kind of respect that can't be bought, but it also set the stage for messy beef later, like 50 Cent's loud snitch accusations. So here's the backdrop. Black Mafia Family, aka BMF, was born in 1985 out of Southwest Detroit. Big Meech and his brother, Terry Southwest T. Flannery, weren't just some small-timers. They were connected directly to the top Mexican cartel players, moving serious weight behind a family-owned car service.
Everybody's shining like new money. There ain't no other crew like this in the world, and there never will be another. Not black, it never will be, because it said that if like this is shining all together, being together, doing shit every day, then they gonna fall out over some money or somebody gonna rob, steal, and kill. I have yet to see that. All of us get along.
Fast forward to the early 2000s, and BMF had the whole streets and club scenes on lock. They built a full-blown entertainment empire as their cover, and at their peak, man, they had 500 people on payroll pushing that heavy product all across the U.S. coast to coast.
For every place we stay at, L.A., Atlanta, Detroit, we have homes, our own homes. We don't have to go in and rent. We got our own houses, we got our own cars, we got our own hoes, we got our own clothes. You know what I'm saying? And we can't be stopped. I don't see nobody stop. I don't see none to come after us either. None. Nobody will never do this again. There's this many niggas and this much money can't get along.
But listen, it wasn't easy getting to the top. Meech and T had to fight for every inch. We're talking brutal turf wars, hard-won territories, and a whole lot of blood spilled along the way. Terry took a bullet to the right eye back in the 80s and was left partially blind for life. Big Meech got shot twice, once in the neck during a brawl outside a Chinese spot, and again in 2004 after an altercation outside an Atlanta club. That time he caught one in the backside, but that night wasn't just another shootout. It was deadly. Anthony Wolf Jones, Diddy's ex-bodyguard, and another dude got taken out permanently. Meech walked away, but his world got way more dangerous after that.
So we were in Club Chaos this particular night, and one of Meech's friends, Wolf, was there. So Wolf and Meech knew each other because he was Puffy's ex-bodyguard, and Puffy and Meech were close. Wolf sees his ex-girlfriend, but she's not with Meech, you know, she's standing on the back wall. Wolf reaches past Meech and mushes her, and Meech was like, nah, that's not going down. Whatever y'all got going on, you can handle that privately with her. But if she's standing here with me, I can't have you disrespect her like that.
That led to verbal altercation, physical altercation, which led to Wolf Jones ejected from the club. Demetrius and his bodyguard, Bull Height, were on their way to their vehicle when they encountered Wolf Jones and Riz Gertie waiting for them with guns drawn. Wolf Jones started shooting.
All hell broke loose. Gunfire was coming from everywhere.
Police aren't sure what triggered the violence, but witnesses say dozens of bullets flew near the intersection of East Paces Ferry and Bowling Way.
We all meet up at the house, and it's still not a big deal. You know, Meech is actually leaning on the counter laughing because we're drunk as hell. He's like, man, Yogi, my ass is burning. I'm like, what? He's like, man, I think I got shot in the ass. And sure enough, got shot in the ass.
Side of street politics, BMF was the epitome of that big money lifestyle. We're talking 13 multi-million-dollar mansions sprinkled across the map, an endless parade of luxury foreign cars, closets stuffed with designer fits most rappers could only dream about. And don't even get me started on the jewelry. Meech had Jacob the jeweler on speed dial, rocking custom icy pieces that made everybody's jaw drop. This wasn't fake flexing, this was BMF's real everyday life.
Meech chartered a commercial flight for hundreds of people, and Meech paid for everybody. It was a full-on party in the sky.
I've seen the movie Soul Plane. It was like Soul Plane.
Yeah.
Meech had everything set up. Everything was set up for us to party.
But y'all, even though Meech always preached that BMF was about brotherhood, when the money and fame got too big, cracks started splitting that foundation. The bond between Meech and Southwest T, man, it got ugly. What started as little arguments spiraled into straight-up public blowouts. Folks close to them said it didn't even take much. The smallest disagreements turned into explosive scenes. And Meech? He wasn't biting his tongue. He straight up accused his own brother of stealing from the organization, stealing from family. That tension, it was only getting worse.
One day I found out that T was cutting our dope. T was taking 4 ounces out of each key.
He would take 100 bricks and make an extra 20 bricks out of it. He got to break everything down, repress it, put it back together. I never done that. He done went about to work with my money and his money, and then he repressing my brick.
Meech wasn't feeling that, and I wasn't feeling it. So, Meech told me and Wayne, they're not gonna keep stealing from us, giving us this bad dope. Y'all go deal straight with our supplier, Green Eyes.
At their peak, Meech and T made the decision that would change everything. They split up operations. T packed his bags and headed west to LA, keeping those cartel connections strong. Meanwhile, Meech stayed locked into Atlanta, making the club scene even more legendary. But here's where it really went downhill. When they divided up the empire, the whole squad started choosing sides. Friends became enemies overnight, loyalty lines got blurred, and it set the clock ticking on BMF's downfall. By 2000, Meech shifted his focus. He had his eyes locked on the music game. That's when he launched BMF Entertainment, and it was a perfect fit. With his star power, charisma, and deep pockets, he slid right into hip-hop's world of money, fame, and wild living. Suddenly, Meech wasn't just a street king. He was hanging with all the heavy hitters. We're talking Diddy, Jay-Z, T.I., Jeezy, even 50 Cent himself. Everybody wanted a piece of Meech's glow, and Meech, man, he was stunting hard and pulling up to clubs 100 deep, shutting down entire VIP sections and flexing so tough he'd park his 2 Maybachs.
He had I want to say, sky blue or champagne Maybach, and this is when they first came out. Meech drove up in 2 Maybachs. Pulled the Maybachs up, and I don't know if he purposefully did it or whatever the case may be, but he pulled them in order to block in Jay's Maybach. You know, Meech was always friends with Diddy. Like that's his boy. You know what I mean? So that was always his boy. So I think for Meech it was sort of trying to assert his presence, so that he wanted to make it so that Jay had to speak to him in order to get the cars moved or whatever. But it wasn't no beef at all. It was just sort of that I'm rich too, and I'm street rich for real.
Right next to Jay-Z's, just to remind everybody who the real boss was. One of the wildest stories that still gets people talking today, Big Meech's absolutely insane jungle-themed birthday bash at Magic City. This man didn't just throw a party. He brought 2 live white tigers into the club like it was a casual Thursday night, flex on 1,000.
They were there when it was changing.
Exactly.
And they caught it. Okay, we're gonna catch, we're gonna do this party, we're gonna have the tigers and the lions and, you know what I'm saying, elephants and stuff, all you know, like we never seen that type of stuff. Like you can say what you want to say, you know what I'm saying, about, but that type of stuff you only seen in movies, and you didn't even see that in movies. Yeah. Like for real, not no black people really doing it like that. You know what I mean? So from here to Miami, Cancun, you know, renting out the whole jet. You know, it's stuff that people still ain't doing to this day.
Exactly.
While splitting operations might have helped BMF spread even bigger, it also made the tension between Meech and T boil over. T wasn't vibing with Meech's flashy ways anymore. He started venting about it, first to close friends, then to family members. Problem is, the feds had them on wiretaps the whole time, listening to every single word. Meanwhile, Meech kept living like a king, throwing million-dollar parties, flashing jewelry, popping bottles like it was oxygen. What he didn't realize was that not everybody in those packed parties was there to celebrate. Some were undercover agents gathering evidence, stacking the case against him. And after a 15-year-long investigation, the feds finally moved in. They had it all. Wiretaps, snitch statements, bank records, surveillance, 900 pages worth of airtight proof. In 2005, they dropped the hammer. hard. Meech got picked up in Frisco, Texas. Southwest T got bagged in St. Louis. And 150 other BMF affiliates taken down too. Just like that. The biggest empire hip-hop had ever seen was done.
U.S. Marshals say this man, one of Atlanta Police Department's top 10 most wanted, and a member of an organized crime family, is now behind bars. U.S. Marshals tell me they arrested 37-year-old Ernest Dennis and 40-year-old Jonathan Manigo here outside a Buckhead hotel. Both men, they say, are members of the so-called Black Mafia family, or BMF.
Anyone tied to BMF typically has an extensive criminal history, so we consider them to be very violent.
Investigators say the organization BMF is heavily involved in drug trafficking and has been in Atlanta at least since 2004. At that time, federal agents seized this limo with secret compartments that had almost $1 million hidden inside.
But even before that massive raid, BMF knew what time it was. The walls were closing in and fast. When the feds snatched up Southwest T first, Meech had options. He could have packed up, vanished into Mexico, lived free for the rest of his days. But nah, Meech stayed true to who he was. First he ducked out to Miami, then headed to Frisco, and that's where the feds finally caught him.
I couldn't do it. If I was for self, I could have did that. I could have grabbed a bunch of millions and been on somewhere where you can't be extradited. But that wasn't what I was out for. I was out. I've already played the legal game to the fullest. So now I was trying to legitimize me and the whole family. I mean, I was 37 years old when I got picked up, so I was slowing down anyway, as far as I was getting kind of tired. But when you the face of the family, that's the one thing that I was starting to learn. Even at 37 years old, even though I'm feeling old, so I've been doing it so long, like I was getting kind of tired. You know me, I'm popping pills, smoking weed, drinking, and partying, freaking, getting money, got whips going up and down the road. I'm doing everything to try to make this family successful, and everything we do look big.
And when the government came for BMF, they didn't just target the brothers, they swept up the whole family, their dad, their sister, their girlfriends. Anyone whose name touched a deed or a business tied to BMF's money laundering schemes got caught in the storm. The feds tried to play dirty too. They told Meech and T, take full responsibility and we'll let your family go. And man, those brothers took it on the chin. They pled guilty to save their loved ones, copping to charges under the Continuing Criminal Enterprise Statute. Both of them got hit with 30-year federal sentences. T caught a break during COVID-19 and got released early on house arrest. But Meech, they denied his compassionate release over and over, even with major health concerns. After 2 long decades behind bars, Big Meech finally walked free in October 2024, but with strict conditions to finish out his sentence.
Demetrius Flannery and his brother, Terry, ran one of the country's largest operations during the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. The pair had hundreds of employees, generated hundreds of millions of dollars, and even had a successful record label and magazine. But in 2006, the brothers were indicted in a federal RICO case originating out of Georgia.
BMF was the first group that was accused of being both a criminal organization and a record label.
Attorney Josh Schiffers says Demetrius, also known as Big Meech, is highly regarded because he never took a deal or snitched on his co-conspirators.
And he went down. When he went down, he and his brother were sentenced to 30 years in prison.
In 2020, Terry Flannery was released, and just this week, Big Meech was released from prison. He will serve the remainder of his sentence at a halfway house in Miami.
Even with Big Meech and Southwest T behind bars, BMF didn't just disappear like yesterday's news. Nope, it became legendary. Their name stayed alive, living through music, streetwear, interviews, cemented into hip-hop culture forever. 5 years after their empire crumbled, Big Meech's story got the spotlight again. In 2010, journalist Mara Shalhoub dropped the book BMF, The Rise and Fall of Big Meech and the Black Mafia Family, exposing it all. Then Rick Ross came firing with the hit BMF, Blowin' Money Fast, shining an even bigger light on Meech's lavish lifestyle. And by 2020, man, it was official. 50 Cent and Stars took BMF's real-life saga and turned it into a smash hit TV series, BMF, with none other than Big Meech's own son, Lil Meech, playing him on screen. It went crazy. The streets loved it. By 2022, 50 and Stars dropped an 8-hour documentary, BMF, Blowing Money Fast, diving even deeper into the madness. Then in 2023, 50 kept expanding the BMF empire even more, announcing 3 spin-offs and a 3rd season. BMF wasn't just history anymore, it was a full-blown brand. But then, everything flipped. After Big Meech walked out of prison in 2024, he linked up with Rick Ross, and when a photo of them surfaced, whew, the internet exploded. And 50 Cent? He lost it. He didn't just throw shade, he accused Meech publicly of being a snitch. And just like that, 50 announced he was pulling the plug on the whole BMF TV series. Meanwhile, Big Meech stayed quiet about the drama. But he did make one thing crystal clear. He never snitched on anybody.
I wasn't going to address this because I'm not trying to let nobody trick me off the streets. But I never folded, never told, never will. Death before the time, always.
But y'all know 50, he ain't the type to back down. Now he's out here claiming he got real paperwork showing Meech cooperated with the feds. Thing is, a lot of people ain't buying it. Why? Because that paperwork, it's been floating around for years. And even then, it never straight up labeled Big Meech as an informant, not once. Here's where it gets messy. Even if Tammy Cowens, that old associate tied to 50, did snitch and cut a deal to help Meech's sentence, that doesn't automatically mean Meech himself was involved. If Meech knew about the deal and approved it, that's one thing, but if he was kept in the dark and didn't authorize anything, then it's more of a legal technicality than full-blown snitching. But 50 Cent's camp, especially his son, is pushing the narrative hard that Big Meech knew exactly what was going down and was using Tammy to leak info to the feds to shave off years from his sentence. Still, cats like Gangster Williams, dudes who really knew Meech behind bars, are standing firm. They say Meech never folded, never snitched, never gave up anyone, and honestly, it raises a big question. Why is 50 Cent pushing this whole Meech snitched narrative so hard now? And if that proof has been around for years, why was 50 cool with building a whole TV show around Meech's story before? But now that Meech linked up with Rick Ross, suddenly 50's flipping tables. Man, some folks are calling out 50 for being a straight-up hypocrite. Others think maybe, just maybe, 50 got a point. So what y'all think? Is 50 just bitter and clout chasing now that Meech switched sides? Or was there some truth buried in those documents after all? Either way, sound off in the comments, cause this drama is just...